I was rocking my 10-month-old under an overpass in Toledo when a man in a tailored suit stepped out of the storm and said, "Lauren, I am your grandfather, and your father lied about me being dead." The wind howled through the cracked concrete above us, shaking loose dust and rainwater. My arms tightened around Mia, her tiny body bundled in an old blanket that could barely keep out the cold. Her cheeks were red, her cries thin and sharp against the thunder. I looked up at the stranger, my mind spinning. A grandfather? Alive? That was impossible. My father had told me all my life the man was gone, buried in some accident decades ago. And yet here he was, tall and steady, with eyes so piercingly blue they almost mirrored my own. I should start from the beginning. My name is Lauren Hayes, and at 31, I thought my life would at least be stable, even if it wasn't glamorous. I worked long shifts as a line technician in an auto parts plant in Toledo, Ohio. The factory floor smelled of oil and metal. The machines roared from dawn until night, and my hands were permanently marked with grease and small cuts. But it was honest work, and for a while, it was enough to pay rent on a small apartment and keep food on the table. I thought I had built something steady with my husband, Mark. We weren't perfect, but we had Mia, and when she was born, I believed the sleepless nights and stacked bills were worth it. Until the day I came home early and saw the truth in his eyes, and in the perfume on his shirt that wasn't mine. Within weeks, he was gone. No apology, no support, not even $1 for diapers. Just silence. I tried to hold on to the apartment, but between unpaid leave from work after Mia's birth and Mark vanishing, the numbers didn't add up. Late fees piled high. The landlord tapped on my door every week, demanding rent I didn't have. I sold off what I could, our TV, my wedding ring, even Mia's crib, and still I fell behind. The day the eviction notice came, I knew I had no choice but to return to the house I swore I'd left forever, my parents' place. Going back was like stepping into a shadow of my teenage years. My father, Kenneth, barely looked at me, except to ask if I had a plan for paying my share of expenses. My mother, Denise, sighed each time Mia cried in the night, muttering about how Evan, my younger brother, had never caused such disruption. Evan's room remained perfectly intact, with fresh sheets and posters on the wall, as if he'd never moved out. Mine, on the other hand, had been turned into a storage closet, dust layered on boxes stacked to the ceiling. I swallowed the hurt and told myself it was temporary. I would save money, maybe move into a better place once Mia was older. But each week, my parents pressed harder, demanding I cover more of the household bills, comparing me unfavorably to Evan, who was off chasing his own ambitions without ever being told no. Some nights, after 12-hour shifts at the plant, I'd come home to find Mia asleep on my chest while I sat on the thin mattress of that dusty room. I'd whisper promises to her in the dark. "I'll get us out of here. I'll make it right." But deep down, a knot of fear tightened in me. And now here I was, standing under an overpass in the middle of a storm, clutching my daughter while a stranger in an expensive suit claimed to be the very man I'd been told was long dead. My grandfather. My heart pounded so loudly, I could hardly hear the rain. Was this a cruel trick? A scam? Or was fate finally handing me a lifeline when I had nothing left to lose? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. That was the line I'd once heard YouTubers say. Tonight, it felt like my life had turned into a broadcast itself. The storm poured around me, my baby crying against my chest, while this stranger, this supposed grandfather, extended a hand and promised safety. I wanted to run, I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stared. His name was Arthur Bennett, and he spoke with a calm certainty that cut through the thunder. Lauren, I have been looking for you. For Mia. Your father lied to you your entire life. I am not dead. I never was. Something in his voice, steady, warm, yet tinged with regret, made me hesitate. Behind him, a black car idled with its headlights glowing through the rain. The back door was open, a car seat already strapped in. My legs shook as I followed him, sliding into the warmth. The leather seats felt like another world compared to the damp cardboard box we had called home under that bridge. Within hours, we were boarding a small jet. Mia whimpered, then drifted to sleep in my arms as we lifted into the night sky. My mind whirled with questions. Why now? Why me? Why had my father lied all these years? When I woke, the sun was blazing over palm trees and shimmering water. Sarasota, Florida. We were driven to a sprawling cream-colored estate, all marble floors and glass windows that caught the morning light. A pediatrician was already waiting to examine Mia. Within an hour, she had clean clothes, warm formula, and medicine for her cough. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt dizzy with suspicion. Nothing about this made sense. That evening, Arthur led me into his study, a room lined with dark wood shelves and a heavy oak desk. Your father took everything from me, he said quietly. He told you I was dead to hide his crimes. But I survived. I rebuilt, and now I want to give you and Mia the life you were denied. His words lodged in my chest, but another thought pressed harder. Was I just trading one kind of control, my father's cold disdain, for another? When Arthur stepped out to take a call, I glanced at the desk. A folder sat partly open. My hands trembled as I reached for it. But before I touched the papers, my eyes landed on something else. My mother's old laptop resting on the side table. I hadn't seen it since Toledo. What was it doing here? Driven by a mix of anger and curiosity, I flipped it open. To my shock, the screen lit instantly. No password, no login. Just a flood of emails, financial notices, and scanned documents. My pulse spiked. Who leaves a laptop wide open like this? There it was. My name. Line after line of debt notifications, payday loan approvals, late payment threats. Every account linked to my social security number. My stomach dropped as I scrolled. Then I saw it. Attached to one application was a contact email. It wasn't random. It wasn't stolen by strangers. The email address belonged to Evan, my younger brother. The room spun. Had my own brother been using my identity all along? Did my parents know? Arthur's footsteps echoed back toward the study. I snapped the laptop shut, heart racing, clutching Mia closer. I thought I had escaped one nightmare, but now, staring at that hidden folder and the name on those loan documents, I realized I had only stepped into a darker maze, one that wound straight back to the family I thought I'd left behind. The next morning, I woke in a bed softer than anything I'd ever slept on. Mia was cooing in the crib beside me, dressed in a brand new set of pajamas. Sunlight poured through tall windows. For the first time in months, I wasn't waking up stiff from concrete or drenched from rain. Arthur insisted I eat breakfast with him. The table was spread with fruit, coffee, eggs, toast, things I hadn't tasted fresh in so long. I was still cautious, but Mia laughed when he played peekaboo with her. A part of me wondered if I was finally safe. That afternoon, he drove me to the downtown Sarasota office of Harbor Light Developments. The building gleamed with mirrored glass and polished marble floors. I felt wildly out of place in my second-hand blazer, but Arthur didn't introduce me as his granddaughter. He simply said, "This is Lauren Hayes. She's joining the sales support team." No one looked twice. Just another new hire. That was how he wanted it. No special treatment. The work was confusing at first. I was used to factory lines, torque wrenches, and safety goggles, not phone scripts and property listings. But Helena Ward, a sharp manager with kind eyes, took me under her wing. She told me, "Clients can smell fake a mile away. Just be genuine. Listen more than you talk." I threw myself into learning. Every night after putting Mia down, I read contracts until my eyes burned. Every morning, I practiced pitches in the mirror. Within weeks, I managed to help close a modest condo deal. A middle-aged couple shook my hand and said, "You explain things clearly. We trusted you." It wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. For a moment, I thought maybe life could stabilize. Then reality came crashing back. One Friday afternoon, Mia's daycare called. "Ms. Hayes, your payment has been declined." I froze. I had money in my account, enough to cover it. My heart raced as I logged in on my phone. A fresh delinquency had appeared. Another payday loan, thousands of dollars, opened just days ago under my name. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I whispered, "No, not again." Helena noticed my face turn pale. "Are you okay?" she asked. I lied and said I was fine. But inside, panic clawed at me. That evening, after putting Mia to sleep, I borrowed Arthur's assistant's printer and pulled the credit report myself. The loan was there in black and white. But this time, attached was something new. An authorization slip with surveillance stills from the loan office. I stared at the grainy photo until my knees buckled. The man in the image was tall, with the same slouched shoulders I'd grown up seeing, the same cheap jacket he wore every Thanksgiving. My brother, Evan. He was smiling at the clerk as he signed my name. My name. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from waking Mia. Betrayal burned through me. It wasn't some faceless thief. It was my own blood, draining me dry from hundreds of miles away. I wanted to march into my parents' house that instant, wave the photo in their faces, demand answers. But I was terrified of what I'd hear in return. Did they know? Did they help him? The next morning, I tucked the printed, still into my purse, and looked at Mia. Her big eyes watching me, as if she sensed the storm coming. I whispered, "Sweetheart, I think we're about to find out just how deep this betrayal goes." I still remember the smell of my parents' kitchen the day I confronted them. A mix of reheated coffee and old linoleum polish. I had the surveillance photo of Evan in my purse, the proof that my brother had been stealing my name. My hands shook as I laid the papers on the counter. "Mom, Dad, care to explain this?" My mother, Denise, glanced at the grainy photo, then at me. She didn't even flinch. "Evan needed help. You've always been stronger, Lauren. You can handle it." I could feel my chest tighten. Stronger? Was that her excuse for letting my brother empty my life into debts I never signed? My father grunted from his chair. "He's your brother. Family helps family." I slammed my hand on the table. "Family, I've been giving you money every month, every single month, for years. Do you even realize how much it adds up to?" My voice cracked as the words spilled out. $36,000 in 2 years. That's what I handed over to you for so-called household expenses. The room went silent. I swallowed hard, tears burning in my eyes. Do you know what I could have done with that? I could have rented my own apartment, a place for Mia. I could have built a real life. Instead, I stayed here, handing you everything, because I thought maybe one day you'd look at me the way you look at Evan. Proud, like I mattered. My mother's lips thinned. "Don't be dramatic, Lauren. We all make sacrifices. Sacrifices." That word cut deep. I stared at Mia, who was tugging at her blanket in her stroller, oblivious to the storm between us. For her sake, I forced myself not to scream. I left the house shaking, the photo of Evan still crumpled in my purse. I told myself I'd never step foot in that kitchen again. But the truth was, they weren't finished with me yet. Weeks later, Helena invited me to present at a builder's roundtable. It was my first chance to speak directly to potential buyers. I worked for nights, preparing slides, rehearsing my pitch. My nerves nearly buckled. But when I finally stood before the room, something inside me clicked. I spoke from the heart, about stability, about the feeling of home, about what it means to give a child a safe place to sleep. When the session ended, a developer approached me. "I want you on our pre-sale list. You sold me." It was my first independent deal, a real one. The pride swelled in my chest like oxygen. That evening, exhausted but exhilarated, I wheeled Mia out of daycare and headed to my car. The sun was just dipping low when a shadow stepped out from beside the vehicle. My breath caught. Mark, my ex-husband. He leaned against the hood as if he had every right to be there, a smirk playing on his lips. "Long time, Lauren." My stomach flipped. "What are you doing here?" He waved a folded envelope casually. "Your dad thought we should talk, settle things." I froze, the noise of the parking lot fading to a hum. My father. He had sent Mark. Mark's grin widened. "You're doing well now, aren't you? Nice job. New connections. Maybe it's time to renegotiate. For Mia's sake, of course." My pulse hammered in my ears. The man who abandoned us was back, and my own father had put him on my trail. I clutched Mia closer and whispered, "Not this time." But inside, I knew another storm was brewing, one I wasn't sure I was ready for. Arthur called me into his study one evening. The air smelled faintly of old leather and cedar. Mia was asleep upstairs with her nanny, so it was just the two of us. He poured himself a glass of scotch and motioned for me to sit. "I think it's time you knew the truth," he said. His voice was steady, but there was grief underneath. He told me how, decades ago, my father Kenneth had stolen everything from the family safe. Cash, bonds, even heirlooms. My grandmother, already fragile, discovered the betrayal and collapsed from a heart attack that night. She never recovered. Arthur's eyes glistened. "Your father told the world I was dead, so he wouldn't have to face what he did. He cut me out of your life entirely, Lauren. And for that, I can never forgive him." I sat frozen, the glass in my hand trembling. My chest ached with the weight of what I was hearing. All those years, I thought Arthur was gone, buried, while in truth, my own father had been the executioner of memory. "I don't want you to carry his sins," Arthur continued, "but I need you to understand the blood you came from and the strength you can choose instead." The next day at Harbor Light, Helena and I presented to the board. I stood before a long mahogany table lined with executives who looked skeptical at first. I cleared my throat and spoke. "I know what it feels like to lose a home. I know what it feels like to hold a child in your arms and not know where you'll sleep that night. That's why I'm proposing the Restart Housing Program, a pilot here in Sarasota. We buy up distressed units, renovate them modestly, and lease them at cost to working single parents. It's not charity. It's sustainability. A bridge back to dignity." The room was silent for a moment. Then Helena nodded. "I believe in this idea. I think it could transform lives." After questions and debate, the board voted. Approved. Just like that, the project was alive. My chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in years, hope. That night, Helena pulled me aside. "Lauren, you've got vision. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I thanked her, But inside, I still felt the sting of my family's betrayal. It never left me, no matter how many contracts I closed or projects I proposed. 2 weeks later, corporate counsel called me into a meeting. They had been reviewing old paperwork linked to the fraudulent loans in my name. The lawyer slid a file across the desk. "You need to see this." I opened it and froze. On the page was a notarized affidavit tied to one of the payday loans. The signature line was shaky, almost hesitant, but it was familiar. It was my mother's handwriting. The air in the room seemed to thin. My throat closed. No, she wouldn't. The lawyer's voice was calm, professional. "Lauren, this isn't identity theft from strangers. Your mother co-signed this loan. Legally, she bound you to the debt." My head spun. I gripped the edge of the desk. Betrayal from my father, betrayal from my brother. I could barely breathe under the weight of it. And now, my mother too. The lawyer leaned forward. "You have enough evidence to press criminal charges against both of your parents. The question is, do you want to?" I stared down at the file, my pulse hammering. Every instinct screamed yes. But a small voice inside whispered that if I chose that path, I'd be dragging Mia through years of trials and headlines. I closed the folder slowly, my hands trembling, knowing my next decision would either break the chain or ignite a firestorm. I sat in my car outside the law office for nearly an hour, staring at the folder in my lap. My mother's signature blurred as tears filled my eyes. If I pressed charges, I could have them both arrested. I could finally make them pay for every sleepless night, every dollar stolen, every time they made me feel like I wasn't enough. But then, I looked at Mia, buckled in her car seat, humming to herself as she played with a toy rabbit. She deserved stability, not years of courtrooms and cross-examinations. She deserved a mother who didn't drag her through public trials just to prove a point. So I made the choice that would spark endless debate. If anyone knew, I didn't press charges. Instead, I worked with corporate counsel to draft a binding agreement. My parents had to repay the debts by contributing directly to the Restart housing program. No ownership, no control, no say in Harbor Light. Just a forced restitution that would outlive their excuses. Was it justice? Not in the way many people would have wanted, but it was the only way I could breathe without tearing my daughter's future apart. Over the next 18 months, Restart Housing grew faster than any of us imagined. The pilot complex in Sarasota filled to capacity within weeks. Families who had once slept in cars or shelters now had modest apartments with clean kitchens and safe hallways. One mother grabbed my hand at the ribbon cutting and said, "You gave my kids a home." I cried that night, not from sadness, but from knowing I'd finally turned pain into purpose. At Harbor Light, my numbers climbed. Helena pushed me into bigger meetings, and Arthur watched from the back with quiet pride. Eventually, I was promoted to sales lead, my name etched on a small plaque outside a glass office. Still, the choice haunted me. Sometimes I lay awake, wondering if I'd been too soft. Should I have pressed charges? Should I have dragged them into court, no matter the cost? Every time, I saw Mia's face and told myself I had chosen peace over vengeance. But peace is fragile. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything cracked again. I had just finished a presentation on expanding Restart into Tampa when my assistant rushed in, pale. "Lauren, you need to come to the lobby, right now." I hurried downstairs, heels clicking against the polished marble. The lobby was buzzing, employees whispering, clients glancing curiously toward the front doors. And there they were, my father, Kenneth, in a wrinkled suit that looked borrowed, shifting uncomfortably, and beside him, Evan, smug, confident, wearing a flashy watch he could never afford on his own. My stomach dropped. Evan spread his arms, theatrically. There she is, the prodigal daughter turned executive. His grin was sharp, mocking. Quite the empire you've built, Lauren. My father stepped forward, forcing a smile. Honey, we're family. We should talk about opportunities, about managing all this together. The crowd hushed. My employees were watching, their eyes darting between me and the two men who had nearly destroyed my life. I tightened my grip on my purse, my pulse pounding so hard it hurt. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. And then, as if scripted, the elevator doors slid open behind me. Arthur stepped out, his presence filling the room. He walked to my side, his cane tapping lightly against the marble, and stopped just inches from my father. Kenneth's face went pale, his mouth opening in shock. Dad? You're alive? Arthur's eyes narrowed, cold as steel. Alive, and watching, always watching. The lobby froze. My father staggered back as if he'd seen a ghost, and Evan's smirk faltered for the first time. I stood between my grandfather and the family that had betrayed me, realizing the past and present had finally collided. The boardroom at Harbor Light had never felt so heavy. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Sarasota skyline, but inside, the air was thick with tension. Employees whispered nervously. Executives shifted in their seats, and at the head of the long, polished table sat Arthur. His eyes were cold, his jaw set. I sat beside him, clutching a folder stuffed with documents I had spent months gathering. My father and Evan walked in, shoulders squared as if they were about to claim what was theirs. My mother trailed behind, wringing her hands, her eyes darting to mine, with something between guilt and defiance. Arthur's voice cut the room like a blade. Today is not about business growth or market share. Today is about truth. He nodded to me. My throat tightened, but I stood. I opened the folder and slid the first page across the glossy table. This is a loan authorization form. Notice the Social Security number. It's mine. Notice the signature, Evans. Gasps rippled through the room. I pulled out another document, then another. This one, co-signed by Denise Hayes. My mother. She bound me to thousands of dollars of debt I never took. And this? I held up the grainy photo from the loan office. That's my brother using my name to get cash. Evan's face flushed red. That's taken out of context. Out of context? I snapped. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. You've been leeching off me for years. $36,000 gone in 2 years. Because you said I had to contribute to the household. I thought I was helping my family. All I was doing was feeding a lie. The executives looked on in stunned silence. My mother broke down first, tears streaming. I only signed because your father said it was temporary. I thought we'd pay it back. Lauren, please. Or I cut her off, my hands trembling. You didn't just sign papers. You signed away my trust. You stole my future and Mia's safety. Arthur's cane tapped against the floor. The evidence is undeniable. Kenneth, Denise, Evan, you betrayed your own blood for greed. Today, we decide your fate. My father tried to protest, his voice shaking. Dad, you don't understand. We were desperate. No? Arthur snapped, his voice booming across the glass walls. You were selfish. You abandoned Lauren when she needed you most? And now you dare to ask for a share of what she has built? All eyes turned to me. My knees felt weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. You want forgiveness. Here's what you'll do. You will publicly apologize. You will repay every cent into the Restart Housing Program. And you will never again set foot in Harbor Light's offices. Evan slammed his hands on the table. You can't erase me like that. I'm family. I looked at him steadily. Family earns trust. Family doesn't steal. But if you want work, Evan, I'll give you some. I slid a final document across the table. You'll join Restart Housing. Not as a manager. Not as a partner. You'll scrub floors in the very apartments meant for the people you mocked. That's the only way you'll understand what it means to start over. His mouth fell open, speechless. My mother sobbed harder. My father's face was stone, pride shattered. Arthur rose to his feet, leaning on his cane. The decision is final. Leave this building. You have no claim here. The room erupted in whispers. Executives stared. Employees exchanged wide-eyed looks. My parents and brother gathered their things in silence. Evan shot me one last venomous glare before storming out, and as the glass doors closed behind them, the boardroom fell into a hush. I sank back into my chair, shaking, my heart pounding like a drum. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I had taken control, but deep inside, a question gnawed at me. Had I truly freed myself from them? Or had I just written a new chapter in the same cycle of vengeance? 3 years passed, like a blur. Restart Housing grew from a pilot in Sarasota into a network across Florida. Families moved from shelters into safe apartments. Children played in hallways that once echoed with silence. And I saw pieces of myself in every tenant who carried boxes through their new front doors. Harbor Light flourished too. Under Helena's mentorship and Arthur's guidance, I rose from sales lead to chief operating officer. My name appeared in business journals beside words like innovation and resilience. I smiled for cameras, but in quiet moments, I still remembered the overpass, the rain, and the man in the suit who had changed everything. Mia thrived. She was 5 now, her curls bouncing as she ran through the gardens of Arthur's estate, her laughter filling rooms that had once been empty. She called Arthur Grandpa, and for him, every giggle was redemption. He spoiled her, yes, but he also taught her about honesty, about responsibility, about family, built not by blood, but by choice. The past hadn't vanished. My parents tried calling once or twice, but I never picked up. Evan sent a letter from a restart site where he'd been placed on maintenance duty. He wrote that the work was humiliating, but also the first time he understood what people endured. I didn't know if I believed him, but I kept the letter anyway. Proof that cycles could bend, even if only slightly. One evening, Arthur invited me onto the balcony overlooking Sarasota Bay. The sky was streaked with orange and pink, waves shimmering below. He handed me a glass of wine and rested a hand on my shoulder. You've carried more than anyone should, Lauren, but you've turned it into something powerful. Don't let bitterness chain you now. I nodded, watching Mia chase fireflies in the garden. For years, anger had been my fuel. Anger at Mark for leaving, at Evan for stealing, at my parents for abandoning me. But anger alone could never build the life Mia deserved. I breathed deeply and felt something loosen inside. Not forgiveness, not yet, but release, a decision to stop letting their betrayal define me. That night, I tucked Mia into bed and whispered, "You'll grow up knowing that love is more than words. It's choices. It's sacrifice. It's showing up when it matters." She yawned and smiled, her eyes heavy with sleep. "I know, Mommy." I kissed her forehead and stepped out into the quiet hall. Looking back, I realized the truth I wanted the world to hear. Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. Responsibility does. Integrity does. My parents shared my blood, but not my heart. My grandfather, once erased from my life, chose to return and carry me forward. That choice was family, If there's one lesson my story leaves behind, it's this: let go of hatred before it poisons the future. Hold on to those who stand beside you, and forgive, not for them, but for yourself, because life is too short to live in shadows when there's so much light waiting ahead. And as I closed Mia's door that night, I knew we were finally free.